Welcome back. Well, this is a journey you will never forget. Oh, well, I didn't. There's a lot of real life in the stories. You'll find that there's a lot of fiction, fantasy fiction, but this happened once I quit the Jehovah's Witness religion I was in. I was in the Jehovah's Witness religion for 30 years, and then in 2012, I told myself, look around, see what's out there, and see if Satan's going to zap you. That's kind of what we were programmed to believe. So, as you notice on this channel, we do talk a lot about our rehabilitation and our mind. Well, part of rehabilitating in our mind is actually writing a journal. And I found that writing fictional stories in with real life took the anger away. It took the emotion, the negative emotion out. And I could make this like a journey and place it where I want and kind of throw some settings in there that I want, and even go into fictional settings. As a JW, we were taught through the Bible that there were these miraculous places, these golden palaces in the heavens. And so our mind, when we allow it to just to go untapped, it's amazing the journey that you can take yourself on. So I hope you enjoy this one. This is A Journey to Love. It's a sequel from the very first book, From the Cosmos. And if you haven't watched that one yet, you can get it on my channel under the playlist books. And all the books with the yellow tab are a sequel. And there's about 6 or 7 books that you'll get to enjoy here. So this is the second one, and it's a sequel to From the Cosmos. This is A Journey to Love. Enjoy. Bye for now. Chapter 1. Shipwrecked. I lay face down on a soft, warm pillow of sand, listening to the squawking ravens above. Slowly shaking the fog from my mind, I muster the energy to roll over and investigate the commotion. As I gaze up at the sky, the hot, blinding sun forces my eyes closed. I notice my t-shirt is half torn, and I feel warm, a burning sensation against my bare skin from the scorching sand. I slowly drift off to sleep again, and in no time, the ravens flew back down beside me. I could sense her panic as they frantically jump up and down, squawking as if to warn me of an impending danger. My mind cleared as I woke up once more, and although I was wobbly at first, I managed to roll over onto my hands and knees and slowly crawl to the edge of the palm trees. I fell a few times on my face, but each time the ravens cheered me on, squawking and jumping the whole way, until I finally reached the edge of the palm trees. I was grateful those ravens had woken me, I thought to myself, or I would have been burnt toast. The relief of the shade was soothing, and the ravens were gone now. I quickly drift off to sleep again. In my dreams, I began to recap the events of the last few months, looking for clues to my current dilemma. I had lost my job and became angry with life. Shortly after that, my marriage fell apart, and even my friends left me. I was depressed and went to see my doctor. He said my condition was circumstantial and encouraged me to simply change my circumstances. I needed to change my day-to-day routine or circumstances, as the doctor had suggested, so I decided a holiday was in order. I'd always dreamt of going on a cruise, but could never afford one. With only a few $100 to my name, I set out to see if I could make it happen. I called multiple cruise lines, but none were within my budget. On my final call, the woman who answered must have sensed my desperation. She paused and asked, "Do you know how to two-step?" Well, they were hosting the first ever tropical on-ship country festival and had completely sold out with 6,000 patrons. However, they had not planned the event with enough volunteer dancers. If I knew how to country dance, they could slot me in on the last minute deal for $199. $199. I could afford that. Meals would be included, and most dancing guests would buy drinks for the volunteers as a tip anyways. I could cruise and eat for a week, enjoy the island tourist stops, mingle with a few people, savor a few of those tropical rum drinks by the pool during the day. And at night, my job was to work as a volunteer dancer at the onboard festival. The first night on board, I was quite nervous, but the rules were quite simple. Only dancing allowed, no personal engagements with guests, and only one alcoholic drink per hour. I would clip on my volunteer badge with my name professionally embossed on the tag, just like any other worker on the ship. We were each given 3 sets of country outfits, which we could keep them at the end of the festival. I thought that was a good deal. Well, I danced with hundreds of guests throughout the week and observed that, in general, the ladies preferred country dancing, while their husbands enjoyed the casinos. It seemed like a good balance to me, carving out a niche for guys like myself. I began to wonder if this could be my new life. I felt the need for a job far away from everything back home, and perhaps this could be my new opportunity. Well, my team leader on the ship appreciated my dancing skills and offered to waive the $199 fee if I stayed for another week on the cruise ship for the second tour. And I thought to myself, why not? A few days later into the extended cruise, heavy rains, intense wind, lightning, and thunder struck. All on-ship events were canceled, and everyone was instructed to stay indoors. Guests and crew members were battling seasickness, due to the large ocean swells rocking the ship. I was relieved to have one of the inexpensive lower-level cubby rooms, as there was less movement compared to the upper deluxe balcony suites. Lying in the darkness, I reflected on my past life and its negativity. I could feel the ship swaying back and forth, and I closed my eyes. It felt like my mind would replay negative events repeatedly until morning. Suddenly, I was jolted awake from my deep sleep by a loud screech coming from the intercom. "Everyone, to the promenade deck! This is not a drill!" I swiftly got up and made my way up to the promenade level. As I stepped onto the deck, all I could see was lightning streaking across the sky and people scurrying and hurrying everywhere. All I could hear was the roar of the waves as I staggered my way over the lifeboats. An attendant with a waterproof tablet was checking off names, while other attendants called them out to him. By the time I arrived, most people were already boarded. The attendant glanced at me and the next guy to me and then announced, "Sorry, gentlemen, we're at capacity. There's only room for one more person. Those booking agencies, you'll have to flip a coin." As I glanced at the man beside me, I noticed he was gazing at the boat. It was clear he was a father. His wife was in tears, comforting their 2 young daughters, who were calling out for their daddy from their seats on the lifeboat. Without hesitation, I gave him the last seat. The attendant gave me one final look before hurrying off to board the last boat and assist the deckman in closing the sealed door. I stood there, gazing out at the black ocean. The air was wild and furious, the waves crashing against the ship with such force that the water gushed along the deck and into the lower hull, causing it to slant. Quickly, I grabbed a life jacket, planning to jump off the ship when the swell moved out, hoping it would carry me away from the sinking vessel. As the moment arrived, I ran to the edge of the deck and leaped as far as I could into the dark waters. After a few moments, I managed to get my head above water and exerted effort to grab onto the back ladder of a passing lifeboat. I clung on tightly as the lifeboat slowly drifted away from the sinking ship. I could sense the drag of the water caused by my weight and my life jacket, which was making it difficult for the fully loaded boat to maintain its course. And the captain, feeling uneasy about the situation, shouted to me to release my grip as it was hindering their ability to steer the boat effectively. Following his command, the deckman struck my knuckles with a paddle, and I reluctantly let go. I managed to grab hold of another boat leaving the sinking ship, this time securing my grip at the back. The next thing I knew, I woke up face down on the sandy shoreline. As I regained full consciousness, I pondered how I had reached the shore and where everyone else was. The sun was setting as I rested under a palm tree, attempting to gather my strength. Hunger pains started to grow inside me, and it struck me that I had no idea how long I had been there. I closed my eyes for a moment and heard those ravens land on the branches above. They dislodged a coconut, causing it to drop, near missing my head by inches. I grabbed hold of it, but then I can feel the pain in my knuckles. I guess from the paddle, I assumed. Then realizing this is not a dream. My hunger cramps caused my hands to override the piercing pain in my knuckles, so I carefully and slowly pick it back up. It was leaking a bit, so I peeled back the bark to suck out the juice and chew a chunk of the raw pulp. As soon as the juices hit my stomach, I could feel an instant relief. I looked around to see where those ravens went, because I wanted to thank them, but they were nowhere to be seen. Soon, the sun was setting. The waves swished back and forth on the shoreline. The birds coo in the upper hills, keeping rhythm, putting me into a deep, deep sleep. Chapter 2. Deserted. I woke up again, and the sun was already beating down on me. About a half a mile down the beach, there was a canteen boat resembling a lifeboat, and when I got there, it was stocked with supplies. It was used for day trips from the ship, going back and forth to various excursions. I got up and made my way down to the beach to the boat, but there were still no signs of people. I expected to see lifeboats and people along the beaches, but all I could see were waves crashing against the shoreline. Birds were singing all around, and I could hear the occasional animal sounds coming from the higher up in the hills. I surveyed my surroundings, walking along the beaches, and then rested in a sheltered spot among the palm trees. Yet, there were still no signs of people. Afterward, I went to inspect the contents of the canteen boat, where I discovered cases of canned food and boxes of liquor and cigarettes. I then dragged the canteen boat onto the shore, only to notice that the propeller had been torn off. Well, here I was, on a tropical island, with all the liquor and food I would need for some time. I could even shake down a few coconuts and pineapples to mix their juices in with my drinks. Although I only had the shell of a boat that was not seaworthy because of that propeller, well, I could at least use it as a temporary dwelling until rescue arrives. The boat had an onboard solar-powered system and all the conveniences of a small kitchen in a houseboat. At last, my own holiday, I muttered to myself. I'd always dreamed of being on a deserted tropical island with no people around. Just a tropical beach all to myself and the finest liquor in the world. Each day, I would make time to relax, soak up some of the sun, just like on my holidays on the sandy beaches of Playa in Mexico. The water would be a beautiful shade of blue, warm as a bathtub, the sun shining at the perfect temperature, with barely a breeze. I'd be sipping on a refreshing cold drink of some sort. After lazing around for about a week, I decided it was time to explore the inland. The island was no more than 20 miles around, a distance I could easily walk in a day. I packed some supplies from the canteen and set out. Following the beach to the southern point of the island, I encountered a large hill blocking the way, with a pebble trail leading around. The trail then curved around a massive rock pillar, veering away from the shoreline and into the hills, eventually disappearing into the trees. The walk was easy, a steady uphill climb for about 5 miles, surrounded by trees all the way. Emerging from the trees, I found myself in a valley meadow with an old farmhouse across from me, possibly an abandoned sugarcane farm. Upon a closer examination, I noticed the number etched into the wood in the basement that read 1982, indicating that it was about 30 years old when I arrived. There were no signs of life from what I could see as I surveyed the yard. An old water well was covered in the shed, and an old steel structure storage building held a variety of old parts and tools, scattered junk all over in dust. The house itself was very dusty, with cobwebs everywhere. However, however, it appeared structurally sound. The windows were tight, the cedar roof had no leaks, and the outer shell was solid. I suspected it was made of fir wood, and the floor was a light colored shale like stone. The main living area featured a vaulted ceiling and a large glass windows that overlooked an overgrown, weedy garden with a view of the meadow. Overgrown trees partially obstructed the view, but I managed or imagined that at one time you could see across the valley. The basement was sturdy and filled with boxes of old clothing, footwear, and housewares. My first impression was that someone had left in a hurry, rummaging through the boxes for specific items and then leaving the rest behind. There was an old radio antenna mast with an old TV antenna. For a moment, I thought the rescue beacon from the canteen boat could be mounted on that mast. The house was connected to a diesel generator, but the fuel tanks were completely empty from what I could see. I considered dismantling the solar system from the canteen and relocating everything to the farmhouse to use as a home base until a rescue arrives. This way, the antenna could help the beacon see over the north side of the island. Hmm. Well, additionally, there were a couple of old wrecked tractors dating back to the 1940s that I noticed. And in the long grass, I uncovered some old haying equipment. It was fortunate that I was raised on a farm and knew what some of this stuff was. My dad was a mechanic, so all of us boys had to learn a few things. He could do anything: electrical work, plumbing, carpentry. As a farmer, he had to know a bit of everything to keep the farm running. And if only I had picked up a bit more on the mechanics, my younger brother became the mechanic, and I was more into the low voltage and the technology. I'd already inventoried all the technology on the canteen boat and realized I could connect the 5,000 watt inverter to the electrical panel at the farmhouse. I planned to remove the six 400-watt solar panels from the canteen and install them on the south wall of the farmhouse. And the canteen also had a 400-volt, 10 kilowatt Tesla Powerwall, which could easily handle the power load even during long cloudy periods with a limited solar input. All I needed to do was run the fridges and a few lights. Among the trees growing all around the farmyard, I discovered a 500-gallon tidy tank filled with old stale gasoline. I extracted some of the fuel from the tank and managed to get an old farmall tractor running after a day or so. Time was all I had. So I cleaned the points, the condenser, used some emery cloth I found in the shop, just as I'd seen my dad do countless times with our old farm machinery. And I replaced a faulty spark plug wire with a piece of baling wire found in the tin shed, and then proceeded to remove the 4 old spark plugs using a plug socket I found on the floor. The spark plugs looked good, but they were caked up with old unburned oil and fuel, and I cleaned the gap and gapped the plugs based on what I thought looked good. After a few cranks, the old tractor fired on a couple cylinders. So I choked it again, it fired, and I repeated this process several times until it finally started running roughly. I managed to find an old chain in a clevis so I could tow the canteen boat up the trail to the farmhouse. The canteen tender boat was large, but it had fold-down wheels that allowed it to be easily moved on and off a ship's deck, making the process simpler than I had anticipated. As I traveled along the winding road, I observed various ecosystems, including a small freshwater lake located south of the farm meadow. The lake featured a small island, and its water was clear and refreshing. Approximately 4 miles further along the winding path, just before reaching the tropical zone, I encountered towering trees that surrounded the base of the hill, resembling a mountain. I speculated that this must be a source of lumber used to construct the house. I spotted an old sawmill among the trees, its large circular blade rusted and unused for 30 years. Further along the trail, there was a sudden drop in altitude, and you could feel the heat and humidity as you descended into the tropical area filled with palm trees, banana trees, pineapple trees, and various other tropical plants. It was hard work, but a wise decision on my part, as the provisions from the canteen lasted us 3 years. Additionally, the supplies salvaged from the boat helped us restart the farm operations. Once I brought the tender boat canteen up to the farm, I towed it beside the house and got busy. I found an old roll of LVT electrical cable in the tin building. My first task was to get the power running in the farmhouse so that the 240-volt AC submersible pump could work in the freshwater well. The boat was equipped with an electric motor and a Tesla battery. I connected a 240-volt input from the inverter on the boat to the breaker panel in the farmhouse distribution panel. And as a result, the entire farm now had lights, power at all the receptacles. Later, I moved the fridge into the house, and the boat became my movie theater with its large screen TV. The outdoor speakers allowed for music and lounging in the sun on the plexiglass deck. After a couple of weeks, I had the beacon removed from the boat and reinstalled it on the large antenna mast beside the farmhouse. Following 3 to 4 days of vigorous cleaning, and now that I had running water throughout, I got the farmhouse all cleaned up. I was ready for a party. But where are all the people? Chapter 3, A Woman. Days turned into weeks, and loneliness and negativity crept in. I found myself lost in my thoughts, aimlessly wandering about the farm. I resorted to heavy drinking and smoking, depleting the supplies on the canteen boat. My mind was consumed by negative thoughts, so I'd blast music to drown them out. The louder, the better. I even dismantled the subwoofer from inside the canteen and set it up outside for the ultimate high-quality rock music experience. This cycle repeated daily. I spent months alone on that island, and about half the time, my thoughts were horribly negative. It was the easiest way of thinking. The drunker I got, the more I started to rant and rave. Not a proud moment of my life. It was June 21st, I remember the early morning vividly, the intense sun rays, and those ravens outside again, tearing into the garbage. I had a headache from drinking the night before, so I decided to walk it off. It was around 6 in the morning when I started walking my usual trail. As I reached the fork in the path, a couple of ravens flew out of the trees ahead of me, causing me to sidestep to avoid their swoop. I couldn't help but wonder what was wrong with them, opting to continue left on the trail to avoid their commotion. I found myself heading toward the south point of the island, a route I hadn't taken in a long time. Walking along the beach for about a mile, I felt like I was on a vast sandbar. Lost in my thoughts, my mind began to drift back home. I wondered why I hadn't even seen a plane fly over. I decided to keep walking and check out the sandy beach on the south point, where the morning sun is rising about now. It will only take a few hours to walk there. I haven't tried that route in a long time. Who knows, maybe the ravens were onto something. I must be reconnecting with my spiritual roots on this island, thinking the ravens are giving me signs? As I stroll along the beach, it appeared to stretch along the island for miles. I adored the white sand, it was soothing for the soul. The dew was rising, and I could see the heat waves dancing up and down off the shorelines in the distance, with a ribbon of green against the blue ocean. The day was blissful. While walking, I scanned the sand for signs of life, like footprints. But, as always, there was nothing to be found. I glance up briefly and then back down to the sand, and suddenly I freeze in my tracks. What was that in the distance? I squinted and saw what appeared to be a figure resembling a ballerina dancing on the shoreline. I rubbed my eyes and looked again. It seemed to be a person, or perhaps an animal, standing on 2 feet, but I couldn't be sure. My heart raced as I dropped to my knees and cautiously crawled towards the edge of the shoreline, disappearing into the dense foliage to avoid being noticed. What should I do? I wondered as I regained my breath. I crawled over to a trail just inside the trees. The pebbles on this path looked polished, as if it had been traveled for 1,000 years by an army. I crouched along the trail to get a better look. As I crawled closer, I peered out of the tall grass, and I saw a young-looking lady twirling around on the beach. I watched for some time, but as I had lost my eyeglasses at the sea, I couldn't quite make out the fine details. I stared closer, and suddenly, ouch! Red ants were crawling up my legs, biting me repeatedly. I jumped up and yelped, giving away my camouflage. I ran out of the grass like a mad bull and straight into the water for relief. When I turned to look at the lady, expecting her to be startled, she wasn't even looking at me. She just reached down, picked up another starfish off the shore, and threw it into the water. There were thousands of them all over the beach as far as the eye could see. While I washed the remaining ants off my legs in the water before slowly walking up to her, she paused for a moment and gazed at me as if she were anticipating my approach. I could see wisdom in her eyes. My heart raced, and I found myself pondering who, where, and why all at once. Breaking the silence, I cleared my throat and said, "Hello, my name is..." And "Hello," she replied in broken English, glancing briefly in my direction. Her skin appeared soft and light, and her captivating eyes drew me in instantly. "What are you doing?" I asked as she bent over to pick up a starfish. She replied, "The starfish will all die soon as the sun rises higher in the sky." I look around at the many hundreds of them, and without thinking, I blurt out, "You're not going to make a difference?" She was silent as she looked down toward the water and threw the starfish from her hand back to safety. I immediately thought to myself, what a stupid thing for me to say. She reaches down again to pick up another starfish, holding it for a brief moment, admiring its beautiful shape. She stroked the top of the fish and said under her breath, "I'll make a difference to this one," before gently tossing it into the water. Her eyes turned green as she gazed out at the water and then back to hazel when she looked at the shoreline. Her hair was black with a red tone from the top of her head to her shoulders, resembling a deep burgundy scarf blowing in the light breeze at the bottom. I could see her cotton top was torn on the one shoulder, exposing a tattoo, taunting me to look further. She caught my eye. I blushed. She smiled, a little mischief in her eyes. Within an hour, we had saved hundreds of starfish that day, giving us a good feeling. As I stood up to straighten out my sore muscles and stretch, I realized, "I've gotten soft," I exclaimed. I hadn't done that type of work since I'd landed on the island. I was always drunk, waiting for a rescue. I was not expecting to meet anyone. She didn't talk much, but she studied me as we walked steadily along the beach. I'd never explored this part of the island before. I always believed the big rock cliff marked at the end, but on the other side, nestled among the huge palm trees, was a small old cabin that I never knew existed. The cabin was cozy inside, with low ceilings and a scent of cedar, mixed with unfamiliar flowery fragrances. She took my hand and led me over to a small couch, which she adjusted into a small bed, gesturing me to lay down. As I sat on the bed, she lit candles and the sun was setting. Despite every muscle aching, I forgot about the discomfort when she emerged from her kitchen with a bowl of something incredibly fragrant. The dish was a blend of vegetables, herbs, and spices with a meaty taste. It was exactly what I needed, far surpassing the preserved food I had been consuming from the lifeboat. That day, all I had eaten was rum and, well, it was Jamaican rum, and fruit juices from the canteen. I finished eating, and she took my bowl. I followed her through the kitchen and then outside to her yard. Later, we walked on the beach and watched the sunset on the water before it sank into the ocean, leaving a dark red glimmer across the water and a red streak across the horizon. She studied each ribbon of the sky with great interest and finally said with conviction, "The red sky tonight will be a sailor's delight tomorrow." Will it be calm? It will have a certain wind in the air that will not leave a sailor stranded at sea, and the sky will not bring a storm causing grief. I paused for a moment, like when I read the Farmer's Almanac. Her energy drew me in. Her inviting eyes and soft half smile made me eager to know her better. The backyard was a fragrant oasis, filled with shrubs, herbs, fruits, and flowers of all kinds and sizes. It was a hidden paradise, and I fell in love instantly. My old life, with all of its worries, pain, and sorrow and despair, it all disappeared. All I could focus on was the beautiful person standing before me, and in that moment, I was no longer alone. Chapter 4. Love. Days turned into weeks as we fell in love. She slowly improved her English by studying my facial expressions and matching them to words. Once we overcame basic language barriers, we could share life stories with each other. Although the island seemed tropical, we experienced distinct seasons up in the hills. Suddenly, fall arrived, prompting us to spend the winters in the old farmhouse, away from open water. My task was to gather firewood for the winter months, while Amalia prepared the home for the colder season. We inventoried the canteen goods, stored them in the basement. I dismantled the refrigerator from the boat and relocated them also to the basement. The boat exterior was repurposed to house the solar system and batteries. To prevent damage from the cold water or the cold weather, I later removed the batteries to the indoors. The boat stereo and speaker system were successfully relocated into the farmhouse. The solar system was connected to the breaker panel, making the transition easy. During most of the winter, I monitored the radios and ensured the beacon was working on top of the mast. My main goal was to get rescued, so I patiently waited. Throughout the winter months, we played cards and various games we found in the canteen lifeboat, and the old farmhouse also had games and cards and things laying around. We spent many hours watching hundreds of movies from the relocated boat entertainment system, which contained a built-in library of movies and music videos of all sorts. The canteen had liquor, and so I could drink away the months until spring finally came. The snow was melting high up in the hills, water was flowing vigorously, and the grass was turning green. Feeling impatient and abandoned, I began to take out my frustrations on Amalia with sharp remarks. One day she simply left, leaving me to wander aimlessly around the farmhouse for days, wondering if she would ever return. When she finally came back, she brought a variety of herbs and plants from her cabin, and together we started to build a garden. Eventually, we even began to raise some little bantam chickens. Most mornings, I would spend my time hunting for their nests of eggs. One day, a wild horse approached, and Amalia reached out to the mare. The horse came over and nuzzled up to her. And when I walked over, the horse quickly pulled back and scurried off to a safe distance. It started to graze at a distance from me, but stayed around and bonded with Amalia. It was a magical time for us. We only had each other to rely on, and we built an excellent relationship during the many hours we spent together. One day, I was curious and asked her how she bonded with the wild horse. She explained that the horse is connected to our energies and can sense our fear, which is why it keeps its distance. She shared that her people believe the horse is part of God, and that God sees us through the animal's eyes. Intrigued, I spent a lot of time gazing into the mare's eyes over the summer, hoping to catch a glimpse of God. However, all I could see was the eye of a horse. During the summer, our entire valley was filled with wildflowers and herbs native to the island, creating the most beautiful meadow one could ever imagine. Different flowers bloomed throughout the warm months, always bringing color to our lives. One summer day, while fishing at the small freshwater pond called Fox Lake, I noticed a little pup following me home after walking a couple of miles back to the farm. Presuming its mother had died or abandoned it, we raised the pup and named her Lucky Lady. She became part of my spirit animal world. We became playmates and friends, doing our daily chores together. She was my sidekick on the island with every adventure. Lucky Lady excelled at finding hidden wild chicken nests, making my egg gathering job a lot easier. I felt our bond grow stronger with each positive interaction as we worked alongside each other. Together, we trained and nurtured the new animals we added to the farm. And before long, we had hundreds of wild chickens, peacocks, 2 horses, 3 mini goats, and 21 ducks. Amalia said that all the animals we befriend give us the same friendship in return. If we show them love, we receive love back in various ways. Amalia warned us never to mistreat an animal, as we would then face mistreatment in return, stating, "It is God's rule." One day a baby panther arrived at our farm, separated from its mother, and Lucky Lady became its newest best friend. They chased each other, played tag, and their laughter filled the farmyard with joy. Our lifeboat canteen was running low on supplies, so we began relying more on the fruits of our gardens that we had started planting. With an abundance of eggs, potatoes, and various vegetables we produced, we utilized the refrigerators to freeze the food to sustain us through the winter months. I couldn't fathom how this woman entered into my life. She seemed perfect for me in every aspect. Was I in another world? Or was this just all my imagination? My mind would often try to make sense of all of this. Anytime I tried to talk to her about it, she would just redirect me to the present and tell me to enjoy the journey. When I got angry, she would disappear into her garden, and when I calmed down, she'd return. I felt like I was always saying sorry, with little patience and a chip on my shoulder from my past life. Chapter 5, 3-chord bond. The roosters were crowing, their usual alarm to signal morning on the farm. As I worked my way out of the soft sheets salvaged from the canteen years ago, I caught the aroma of brewing coffee. Nothing beats the quality of a 5-star hotel sheets, towels, and linens, I thought. The coffee smelt amazing, and she brought out fresh cream. When I asked where she got it, I was surprised by her answer. She says the farmer's market. The Butterites. They're the farmers of the land. They trade the goods. But they're a shrewd bunch, she chuckled. And I said, "What?" And she replies in a soft voice, "Well, I think you're almost ready to attend." "Attend what?" I asked again. "Well, once your energy levels are high enough, I will get you a pass to the farmer's market." Our inventory from the canteen was running low, so at times I would worry. However, as we became busier with everyday chores, thoughts of the canteen reserve soon faded. Days and weeks passed, and time took on a different meaning. Time meant nothing, really. It was the second summer solstice, marking 730 days on the island, and I decided it was time to prioritize my health. I gathered all the alcohol and cigarettes from the canteen lifeboat and burned them all. The act of burning felt like a cleansing ritual for me. This marked the beginning of a new era for the first time. I was not reliant on store for food. I no longer had alcohol to turn to in times of hardship. And living on the island had its moments of glory, but it also presented its challenges. We were already living off the land, with Amalia tending herb gardens and vegetable patches alongside the many chickens. My daily tasks included hunting for eggs, gathering wood for fuel, and ensuring we had enough water. We later constructed night houses for the chickens to roost in, and they provided us with an abundance of food. As time passed, my body and my mind underwent positive changes. My thoughts were focused on daily activities, and my worries gradually faded away. One day, Amalia prepared a beautiful candlelit meal. After we ate, she asked me to hold out my hand. In my palm, she placed the most amazing hand-woven ring, braided with 3 little ropes to form a 3-fold cord that fit on my ring finger perfectly. She also gave me a matching one to put on her finger. As she slid the ring onto my finger, she spoke words of love and companionship. She explained that the 3 cords symbolize our union, one for her, one for me, and the third representing the strength of our bond with God. She explained that the strength of the 3rd cord would hold the inner 2 cords together when they were at odds. Each cord would have its own individual strength, but when the 3 are held tightly together, they are unbreakable. I remember clearly how she looked up, smiled, and gently said, "If we develop this kind of love together, the world around us changes and we start to experience new feelings, new energies that we have never experienced before. Our energies are completely different from any other energy on Earth," she explains. By being in harmony with the animals and the earth around us, we begin to experience love on our journey. At that time, I wasn't quite sure what all of this meant, but for once in my life, it felt good. My life finally felt harmonious, though I still had occasional bouts of anger as I struggled to manage my thoughts. They were few in comparison. Amalia and I engaged in many spiritual discussions about life, religion, politics, and people in general, and for the most part, we found ourselves in agreement. At that time, I was releasing my deep religious convictions and embracing new understandings, eager to learn more about the world around me and the purpose of my existence. In the basement of the old farmhouse, there was a library filled with numerous books. I stumbled upon several self-help books and spent the summer devouring them in search of answers. It wasn't until I visited the farmer's market that I realized we are all equally lost, even those in other dimensions. After 12 months passed on the island, filled with work, play, laughter, and life, the fall was cold, leading to a tough winter. But the joy we experienced outweighed the challenges. Each day I trudged through the snow to feed hay to the horses. They exuded a sense of power, and we relied on them for transportation, which was much easier than walking. I found happiness in my tasks, especially as Amalia had a natural way with animals, and the horses responded well to my calm energy. Over time, I developed a bond of trust with the horses as we got to know each other. They eagerly anticipated us riding them, as they also doubled as a tractor when our gasoline ran out quickly, leaving my old farm-all tractor to become a mere lawn ornament. We managed to grow some grain, though don't ask me where she got the seeds. I simply went along with it and learned as we progressed. Over the past 2 years, I observed her collecting seeds from various parts of the island. She had intricate diagrams sketched into the sand, illustrating how all the gardens would interconnect. Some plantings were meant for cross-pollination and followed a rotation schedule to ensure the plants benefited from natural fertilization left by the previous crops. This was a new way of farming for me. My dad and I used to farm thousands of acres using large equipment and expensive man-made fertilizers. Amalia also explained that her crop rotation schedule included a rest year for each crop on the 7th year, allowing the soil to rejuvenate with God's help. She emphasized the importance of taking a day off each week to rest and reflect on the Creator and the world around us. We soon harvested some of the wheat by sickle in the fall and stacked the grain into piles to cure in the sun's heat. After a few days, I used the horses and an old wagon to haul in the wheat stalks. Using a beating stick against some rocks, we harvested the berries off the wheat shafts. The grain was stored in a bin in the shop to be used throughout the winter for the animals, saving enough to seed in the spring. It was the solstice of year 5. I was feeling great most of the time, with very few episodes of anger. And then Amalia says to me, "You're ready, dear." Chapter 6. The Farmer's Market. It was along the southern part of the island near Amalia's cabin, that the entrance to the farmer's market opened every month on the eve of the full moon. Taking a leisurely walk to calm my excitement, I looked forward to meeting the butterites who provided the butter. Descending the pebble path to the market entrance, we located the rock that served as the opening. Sensing my nervousness, Amalia held my hand as we approached the rock. Suddenly, the rock transformed into a mist, and we walked into the farmer's market together as a couple for the first time. Nina, whose name I later learned, was the first person I made eye contact with as I entered the farmer's market. She was by the law board, which displayed the laws of the Dene. I read them silently and muttered, "That's what I believe." Nina promptly responded, "That's what we all believe, and that's why you are here, White Wolf." Startled, I turned my head and exclaimed, I hadn't heard that name in many years. In fact, it was back in 2004 when And then Nina held up her hand and finished my sentence, saying, "Yes, it was in Johaven, a small town in Nunavut, Canada. You were there on a spiritual journey, and all the children playing along the streets named you Amrock, meaning White Wolf in your language." I knew right away she was a special person, one of dignity, spirituality, and royalty all in one package, with deep insight into the past, present, and the future. Her long crimson hair whisked back in a circle as a light breeze drifted by. She stood up and spoke with authority, rooted in love and kindness. I asked, "How many languages do you speak?" Nina smiled, gazing over the bustling farmer's market. With a gentle sweep back to us, she replied, "There are 7 lands and seas and 7 seas, so there are 7,000 languages." Intrigued, I asked another question. "How do you remember all the languages, Nina?" And she smiled again, and her soft eyes warmed to the shade of brown. Her body relaxed, inviting me to sit beside her and seek comfort and protection. And then she gently brought me back to reality, asking in a soft voice, "How do you feel, White Wolf, in this moment?" "Well, I feel at ease. And I'd love to listen to a bedtime story while sitting on your lap." Nina chuckled. Yes, that is what I was conveying through my body language. Even with those with knowledge of only one language can understand the pure language. This pure language is the lost language, she continued, the one we are still searching for. In this language, there is no judgment, no lies can be told. The word hate does not exist. It was the original language from which all other languages were derived. She sighed and then softly added, "It is the lost language, yet some believe it still exists. Perhaps, White Wolf, you will help us find this pure language." I thought about it for a moment and realized it was like a combination lock to gain entrance to this place. Only with good energy can one pass through the rock wall. My mind raced as I pondered why I was there and what it all meant. Why were they both smiling and looking at me? And who were all those people gathered in the large circle around an oval of water? Nina interrupts my thoughts. Do not worry, as you'll experience many different feelings in this new system of things. It's all about the various types of love you will learn over the next 2 years. Once you have completed your cleansing, you will be ready. Ready for what? The number that is sacred to the voice is 7 years, she continued. It takes 7 years for your physical body to replace each one of its cells. The number 7 is significant with the earth and how the earth is programmed. What do you mean? I asked. She smiled and said, during your old life, each of the cells in your body was made up of layers of anger, hate, jealousy, envy, and doubt. By taking 7 years to replace each cell in your body with food grown from love, water infused with the energy of gratitude, and purpose defined by faith, love becomes the new cellular structure within the human host. As dusk fell, each farmer at the market had a campfire on the shoreline. I could hear their laughter and the chatter echoing over the bay, creating a positive and vibrant energy throughout the assembly. What a day, I exclaimed as I looked up and thanked the voice for helping me reach this wonderful point in my life. A chuckle seemed to bubble up inside my chest, originating from above. My eyes welled up, not from tears, but from a sense of overflowing emotion. It was a new experience for me, and Amalia sensed my unease. This is another form of love you are feeling, but we can discuss it later, Amalia whispered in my ear. It's time to head home. She tenderly kissed my cheek, took my hand, and we walked towards home. We bid Nina goodbye as we disappeared through the mist, heading toward the cabin. We decided to spend the night there since it was only half a day journey back to the farmhouse, and we still had 2 more moons until the market was completed. The cabin quickly became a cherished retreat for us during the monthly market visits. The walk to the cabin allowed me time to contemplate the new adventure, leaving me with unanswered questions. As we retired for the evening, my thoughts were weary. I soon drifted off to another place, a place I often visit in my dreams, where I fly to a faraway land. This place is characterized by ice and snow, yet the people there exude warmth. I can feel their smiles. The energy they radiate through their smiles in my dreams affects me in a most unusual way. Chapter 7. Layout of the market. As we walked to the market the next day, I asked Amalia why she had waited so long to take me there. Did you read the Dene Law Board? It says that we are not to talk about others. You earned the experience on your own when you balanced your energies. Imagine knowing your destination before you began your journey. That would take the joy out of your journey. Well, it feels as though it took forever, I replied. She smiled and said, time heals, and it took that long for you to heal inside. You just were not ready with all that anger wrapped up in you. It took all 5 years to clear the bulk of the anger out of your body. Many layers, and we had to peel them off one at a time. You could not handle any more, any faster. That is why the Creator has run a 7-year cleansing program into the earthly cycle of things. Once mankind becomes sync with the earth, it will resonate again with the frequencies of love. Currently, the balance is disrupted, and we believe that only the people of the land can help us return those harmonics, or those harmonious levels. I'm convinced that this will ultimately heal mankind, she said. Pausing, she turned to me with a smile, hugged me, and declared, let's go. We have work to do. With a chuckle, she playfully tapped my backside and continued walking. We passed through the rock into the mist. I carried a pole over my shoulder with 2 large wicker baskets attached to either end, which I had watched Amalia weave months before in preparation for this lunar event. She carefully packaged our goods in each basket to balance the pole. I walked straight in as if I had done this many times before. "Very nice entrance," she said, showing real strong faith, no hesitation at all. She commended me as I disappeared through the mist into the rock. I squeezed Amalia's hand as we walked down the cobblestone path, polished from years of use. The stones were well placed and sized, but they were different in every way, in every shape, and every form than I had ever seen before. The place had an old Roman look. Indeed, the entire setting appeared to be well sculpted from the Greek era, complete with pillars at each entrance gate. A large circle representing the earth was visible, with rocky parts representing land, and the rest depicting clear blue water. There was a distinctive glow as well, darkness on one side resembling night, and light on the other. It felt as if we were on a platform in the sky, overlooking the earth, with a clear view of various constellations, the moon, and sunlight. Around the oval centerpiece, there was flowing water in various places, with a well-carved stone wall about 3 feet high surrounding the water. Additionally, there was a cobblestone path large enough to allow 2 chariots to pass, with grass all around the oval. The energy felt smooth, not overwhelming at all, except for my own unevenness. I received many glances, looks, and smiles as if I were just learning to walk like a little toddler, stumbling every few steps to take another breathtaking look at everything around me. I paused to collect my thoughts as the sights were initially overwhelming. After a moment of silence, I continued to observe. In the sky, I could see the 12 constellations circling the central oval. As I walked down the cobblestone path around the oval, I noticed 12 sections, each identifiable by harmonics, frequency, color, and essence, all serving a grand purpose to the earth. It was a magical place. The earth had a rhythm. The air was clear and clean, and the temperature was crisp yet warm. It was perfect, I thought. It was Earth, but a new Earth. Chapter 8. What is this place? I felt a beaming energy penetrating the back of my head, and this time Amalia was squeezing my hand, almost as if she sensed the energy too. We walked the entire oval with the 12 exhibits resembling the earth, each ruled by a masculine and feminine entity representing the 24 elders of the earth. All the exhibit entrances were around a large body of water, and it took about a half a day to walk through all of them. This was our last day, as the full moon was complete, and the passage would soon close, so Amalia wanted me to see the whole market. We found ourselves back at the law board at 6 p.m., with both the moon and the sun visible in the sky. The sun was setting as the constellations began to light up the sky. As we watched the moon rise, Nina caught us off guard from behind, saying, "Well, hello, you two." Walking around the large farmers' market assembly with us, she explained that each section represented power over the people of the earth. She elaborated that we were all in this game together, and to reach the final finish line, we must all attain certain dimensions, each presenting its own set of challenges. No individual knew the answer to which was the right or wrong course, and we were all players in a unique program of life. Nina was silent, waiting for a response, and Amalia was squeezing my hand as if to say, "Do not say anything, do not say anything, don't." I finally broke the silence and asked Nina, "How did I jump from my old life on Earth to here?" Nina warmly squeezes our hands and said, "Over the next 24 full moons, you will have the opportunity to visit each of the 12 partitions to the world of humans. Through this channel of education, the universe has granted you to this level of understanding for a reason. What reason? I asked. This answer we of the 24 elders have not been granted. These types of insights are not known to us. Nina replies. And she took my hand and led me over to the technology board. There, she encouraged me to educate myself on the design of the game we are all in together. And the board reads as follows. The technology board. The greatest design of the grand universe as a whole is based on numbers, math, quantum physics, imagination, and belief. Everything to date is based on science and discovery. A warning to all, read with caution. Once you read, it will change your destiny from this point forward. I paused and I wondered whether I should continue reading or not. Nina smiled and said, "Many people stop at this point. What are you afraid of, White Wolf?" "It's just that I like where I'm at in life. I hate to change things," I replied. Nina seemed to understand my thoughts and responded, "What if this knowledge reveals a chance to enjoy what you are experiencing now, but on a much greater scale?" I pondered for a moment about how amazing life could truly be. "Okay, I'm willing to see, so I will keep reading. Imagine that the entire universe we exist in is colossal. It's a colossal game. Imagine that. The entire universe that we exist in is a colossal game. Time exists within the universe, but does not exist outside of it. Beyond the visible universe lies the creator of the game, the voice that harmonizes and communicates within all the players. Initially, the players move in an astron, a group of 3 throughout the universe. The program was downloaded into the universe through numerous intelligent portals, often referred to as angels. The universe as we perceive it today continues to be created and transformed in accordance with the program. The formation of land masses in the universe marked the beginning of the love creation. Once a landmass could sustain life as we know it, it was named Earth. There are numerous Earth-like landmasses scattered throughout the universe, all governed by the same rules and laws of attraction established by the Creator. This new form of life was a crucial component of the master program designed to convert energy into mass and eventually into Earth. A unique leap enables energies to transition into a 3-dimensional state on Earth. The 4 elements and 4 corners of the Earth are all intelligent energy sources that help maintain balance in Earth's soil, water from the clouds, fire from the thunder, and wind from the air. This formula is essential for human life but requires a delicate balance. The master design of this program is self-creating and self-imploding to achieve a universe of perfection. Every being in the universe is inherently drawn towards the Creator, and the law of attraction is prevalent on Earth as well as in the universe. Each player in the universe has the choice to choose their path and journey. In the beginning, when the game was self-creating, a virus formed and infected much of the universe through the implosion process. After completing a thorough virus scan of the entire universe, the creator of the program had 2 options: to scrap everything and start over, or to send in a software upgrade. The software upgrade was chosen, but it would take 2,000 years of Earth's rotations for the fix to be completed. Considering that the entire design of the universe took billions upon billions of rotations of the solar systems to achieve the perfect balance for the creation of life on Earth, time seemed insignificant. Life is a journey for each celestial being on this planet. The game offers freedom of choice through a 3-bit connection to the human host, known as B1 and B2, which forms the hardware or firmware of the decision bias of the human host. This programming is essential for survival, similar to the instincts of the animals on Earth. B3 is achieved when the host connects with a celestial being. This connection serves as a communication link in the human synapses, traveling at the speed of light within the host's network. B1 is responsible for establishing memories, while B2 facilitates the learning process from the stored memories and establishes a connection to the world around the host with a 4-dimensional capability. Once the human host unlocks its 5th-dimensional ability, its potential can escalate to the higher dimensions even during its earthly journey. This achievement aligns the host to maximize its star power, utilizing coded energies from the stars to connect with its astron of hosts from the cosmos. Together they achieve a unified purpose and become a superpower. While on Earth, each player will choose various windows or doorways along the journey, always seeking its astron or superpower, but only few will find it. Frequencies are energies that are invisible to the naked eye. Earth operates using 12 musical notes, but humans typically use 7, can hear 10, and only feel the other 2. This results in combined frequencies and notes that harmonize with human emotions. All participants are connected by their involvement in the game by their survival. There are 2 lives, and after the final test, the virus will be eradicated once and for all, leading to eternal life for those who remain in the game. Once a player loses their life, they are reserved on Earth until the last resurrection, when a critical mass of positive energy reaches worldwide. There will be the last test for those who have not yet been tested, to rid the Earth of the virus once and for all. Then each player in the game will achieve utopia. What is this place, utopia? I asked Nina. We are here in this dimension where we have little or no control over who gets in, such as yourself. You have found your own windows and doors through the choices you have made in the life you have lived. So, your walk on Earth and those choices on Earth have led you here to this place at this moment in time. Amalia looked away and added, "It can all change with one negative thought that goes uncontrolled and escalates. If left loose, it will become a domino effect and eventually turn into a raging mudslide by the time the sun sets." Nina smiled. Yes, life has its ups and downs, but that is why it is so important to find 3 things to be grateful for. Break the pattern, break the cycle of rage before the damage becomes irreversible. Always remember this must happen before sundown, or it will be too late. Why are you both here? She looked directly into my eyes until I started to feel uneasy. Over time, we have learned the limits and variations of the program through trial and error. Many have sacrificed their lives to test these limits, and the entire assembly allows major events to take place to observe how the program responds. You are part of it, White Wolf, but not numbered. The 24 have the insight into the number as it has been sealed in the very molecules of the universe. This is the perfect rule. Eventually, this type of unity will guide the people of the Earth with a male and female ruler for each partition of Earth. Each female and male ruler would have lived on a life on Earth, raised a family, and had a spouse to maintain balance during their earthly cycle. In this realm, both men and women must come to an agreement on decisions before they govern their respective partitions. Each of the 12 partitions have 12,000 subparts, totaling 144,000. The ceiling is based on the inner workings of the Earth's mainframe. These energy beings function as kings and priests in an energy field that spans all quadrants of the Earth. From this dimension, we send 7,000 workers to the Earth. These workers may look like ordinary humans, but they serve as watchers and helpers to the lost souls. These individuals have access windows to this dimension for support from the 144,000. And what about where Amalia and I are? I wanted to know. The island we see as an anomaly. What do you mean? I asked Nina. We do not create the program. We have learned how to work within it. Your island, for example, is a stepping stone that provides you with the opportunity and environment to move beyond. I must have looked confused as she continued. Even we do not know what lies beyond in our dimension, for none of us have completed the second test. We're all awaiting the 1,000-year reign of peace on the new Earth, yet to happen. Nina suddenly seemed sad. You know, White Wolf, there's still a war on Earth, and the virus is getting even stronger. Some are even calling this the second test. Others call it the Great Balance or the Final Reset. She gazed at the constellations of stars for some time before sharing with us the story of the beginning of time. She described a time when there was a perfect balance between feminine and masculine energies across all 12 octaves, allowing for a complete upload and download capacity to the voice. However, as the balance shifted and the masculine energy became dominant on Earth, it led to one overpowering the other, causing harm and disrupting the harmonious entanglement to the voice. Now, you two scurry off and learn all about creation. I looked at Amalia and then back to thank Nina, only to find that she was nowhere to be seen. I made my way over to the technology sector, while Amalia headed straight for the herbs and garden sector. We agreed to meet back at the law board at sunset. As I approached the law board once more, I could feel Nina's energy poking at me again. I chuckled to myself as it almost tickled. I was becoming accustomed to all the new energies in this realm. As I gazed over the expansive market by the water, Nina's voice echoed in my mind. All beings, including humans, are multidimensional. Our challenge on Earth is that we have forgotten our multidimensional nature and have become disconnected from many parts of ourselves within the human vessel. The diversity of beings in existence is truly infinite and cannot be captured in any book. Through awakening our spiritual senses, we can become attuned to the spiritual world surrounding us and achieve harmony within it. This process involves transmitting emotions that the recipient can then articulate, similar to a language translation, but it is a pure form of communication. After wandering around the market until the sun began its descent, I headed to meet Amalia. Together, we made our final trip back to the farm to collect our beginnings, our belongings, and gather the animals before our departure from the island. Chapter 9. Leaving the island. As the full moon approached on that October night, a definite chill filled the air. I realized from the notches in the date tree that I had been on the island for 7 years. Curiosity struck me. How long had Amalia been on the island? I pondered, asking her, but decided to wait for another time. She was quite secretive about her past, making me wonder if it was appropriate to inquire about it. Nonetheless, I wasn't prepared to hear her response just yet. I can hear Amalia in the kitchen now, the clinking of jars being filled with herbs as she gathers everything we needed for the farmer's market this month. My thoughts drift to all we have achieved on this island in the past 7 years, how we have turned our dreams into a reality and created our own paradise. I'm not sure if I even want to leave this place. Here, we have few worries. No demanding office, no mortgage. I truly love my life living off-grid here. Get ready for the day, Amalia said as I entered the bright kitchen with a large south window offering a view of our orchards, vineyards, flower gardens. Chickens were running around and the horses grazed freely. I greeted Amalia with a big hug and kiss, enjoying the aroma of the freshly ground coffee brewing. Eggs were frying in real butter, and bacon we had purchased from the Butterites at the last farmer's market was sizzling on the flat iron. We ate quietly, exchanging only smiles and a few polite words across the table. I could see her mentally going over a list of all the vendors we needed to meet today for exchanges and trade items. She is an amazing individual, often humming a mantra to herself to keep her thoughts in order. I have grown very fond of her. If it weren't for her, we would have starved to death long ago. Somehow, we are connected to this magical farmer's market, and over the past 7 years of living on this island, we have had few worries. That day, as usual, we gathered our things and walked along the pebble trail to the market. The wagon was fully loaded, making it a tough pull up the last hill. I worked up a sweat during the last half hour of the trail until we finally reached the small inlet of water nestled into the rocks, which we call Best Lock. After settling down for a rest and enjoying a drink of water, Amalia looked at me hesitantly, as if unsure how to tell me something. Before I could ask, she gestured outwards towards the gateway and began speaking in a whisper. Tomorrow, we will go through this entrance and enter into another world. I said, how do you know this? Amalia replied, yes, Nina has discussed this with her. Nina also explained that this island journey is a short one to help prepare us for a bigger journey ahead. Our address here is dynamic, and our time has expired. Where we are going, we will have a static address, one with real substance on Earth. Eventually, that static address will expire as well. You have completed your 7 years of hard work. Your anger has subsided. Nina also expressed interest in ensuring that the Dexon man has completed his tests on the island. Initially, he monitored anger and its effects upon your arrival, but I am more interested in seeing the results of this past year when you have let go of this anger and replaced it with love. The island's frequencies have cancelled out the effects of anger. Nina says they want to emulate that for the Earth, and in return for our hard work, we will be rewarded once back on Earth. Why, yes, I said. Dexon is from the farmer's market of technology and has been working on the light-in-the-box technology. It's like our Tesla system on this island. His most significant project is a quantum technology-based wristwatch that brings balance to the people of the Earth and wards off viruses. Amalia smiled. Indeed, he did measure our harmonics frequencies off the island. And since your anger has dissipated, his readings are now resonating at 7 hertz. It's time for us to go. We entered the farmer's market one last time to say our goodbyes. Nina wished us much confidence in our new journey ahead as we disappeared through the mist, but this time to a new land. To be continued in Book 3, Finding Purpose.